Leonardo stood by the window of his small warehouse break room, watching the heavy raindrops crash against the asphalt. The light from the street lamps reflected in the puddles, creating a ghostly glow. He glanced at his watch, 15 minutes to midnight. "Leo, aren't you going home yet?" Roberto asked, peering into the room. "Your shift is starting soon." Leonardo rubbed his eyes tiredly. "No, it's my night shift. Sophia needs more money for her treatment." Roberto shook his head in sympathy. "How is she?" "The doctors say the new therapy might help, but—" Leo fell silent, looking out the window. "It costs a fortune." He turned away from the window and picked up the file. Another night of routine work in the warehouse was all that remained of his former life as a successful businessman. Sometimes he woke up at night thinking about his transportation company, which had to close during the crisis. "Leo," Marco's voice interrupted his thoughts. "The new shipment from Milan has arrived. I need your signature." Leonardo stepped out into the cold rain, heading for the truck. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed some movement at the gate. In the dim light of the streetlights, he could see the figure of a man. "Excuse me," the stranger called out, coming closer. "I need some help." Leonardo was on his guard. The rules of the warehouse strictly forbade outsiders, especially at night. He came closer, looking at the visitor. The man was wearing an expensive suit that was soaked through. He was holding a cell phone. "The area is closed to visitors," Leo said sternly. "I understand," said the stranger with a slight British accent. "My name is Austin. My phone is out of juice and I need to make an important call right away. Please." Something in the man's eyes made Leonardo hesitate. He remembered how he had once found himself in difficult situations when he had lost his business. "Okay, come in," he sighed. "You don't know how grateful I am." Austin breathed out in relief. The break room was warm. Leonardo pointed to the phone and, while the stranger was talking, put the kettle on. "Have a drink," he offered when Austin finished talking. "You need to warm up." "Thank you." Austin took the cup with trembling hands. "You know, I met a lot of people today, but no one wanted to help. They were all talking. Leo didn't know why, but something made him open up to this stranger. He told me about his daughter Sophia, her illness, and how he was trying to earn money for her treatment." "Have you always worked in a warehouse?" Austin asked. Leonardo smiled bitterly. "No, I used to have my own transportation company. It was small but successful, until the crisis hit." "And what happened?" "What always happens," Leo shrugged. "Banks raised interest rates. Customers began to delay payments. We had to sell everything to pay off our debts and employees." Austin listened intently, nodding from time to time. A strange glint appeared in his eyes. "You know, Leonardo," he finally said, "sometimes the darkest night is before the dawn." "Perhaps," Leo replied, "but some nights drag on too long." They talked a little longer, then Austin thanked him and left. Leonardo went back to work, trying not to think about how nice it was to feel heard again. The conversation reminded him of the past, of the times when he was not just a warehouse worker, but a manager who made decisions and was responsible for people. Leonardo always loved the morning hours in the warehouse, a quiet hour between the night and day shifts when you can calmly collect your thoughts. He sat in his small break room, looking at a photo of his daughter on his phone. Sophia was smiling in the picture taken last summer when she had briefly gotten better. Now her condition has deteriorated again. "I'll think of something, sweetheart," he whispered, touching the screen. "I promise." The warehouse worker's salary was barely enough to pay for the rent and basic needs, and the treatment. Leo shook his head, remembering his conversation with the doctor yesterday. "Mr. Rossi," Dr. Marconi said, "the new therapy is showing good results, but it is expensive, very expensive." Leonardo took an old folder of documents from his locker, all that was left of his former company. He often looked through them, trying to understand where he had made a mistake. Contracts, invoices, photos of employees at corporate events, happy faces of people who believed in him. "Are you looking through old papers again?" Marco's voice came from the door. "Leo, my friend, you have to live in the present." "I know," Leonardo sighed, folding the papers. "It's just that sometimes I think—" "About what?" "About everything. About how one decision can change your life. If I hadn't taken out that big loan back then, if I had waited to expand—" Marco sat down next to me. "Leo, you did everything you could. How many business owners just declare bankruptcy and run away? And you sold everything to pay your employees. And what did it get me?" Leonardo smiled bitterly. 52 years old, working in a warehouse, a sick daughter. But you kept your honor. That means something. Leonardo looked at his watch. It was 5 minutes past 7. It was time to go home. He started to pack his things when he heard an unusual noise from the yard. He went to the window and saw a black Mercedes S-Class pull into the warehouse. "That's strange," he muttered. "The management never arrives so early and without warning." 2 men in impeccable suits got out of the car. Leonardo felt his heartbeat quicken when he saw the third passenger, his overnight guest. But now, Austin looked completely different. Instead of wet clothes, he wore an expensive suit, a confident posture, and a commanding look. "Oh my God," whispered Marco, who was also looking out the window. "It's Austin Wagner, the CEO of European Logistics Solutions." Leonardo felt his legs give out. European Logistics Solutions was one of the largest logistics companies in Europe. He had read about it when he was still running his own business and dreamed of growing to that level someday. "Leo!" Antonio, the warehouse manager, rushed into the room, excited. "Are you still here? Good. They want to see you." "Me?" Leonardo was surprised. "Why?" "I don't know." Antonio nervously tugged at his tie. "But Wagner himself insists on meeting you." Walking to the office part of the building, Leonardo felt his knees trembling. He hadn't been here once in the 5 years he had been working. The corridors seemed endless, and the looks of the office workers were too curious. In the large conference room, Austin was on the phone. When he saw Leo, he ended the conversation and turned to the audience. "Thank you for waiting. Antonio, you can go now. I need to talk to Mr. Rossi alone." When the door closed, Austin smiled. "Good morning, Leonardo. I think I owe you an explanation." Leo nodded silently, not trusting his voice. "Last night I was returning from an important meeting," Austin began. "My driver lost control on the wet road and the car went into a ditch. Luckily, no one was seriously injured, but my phone was dead and I was stranded in the middle of the night in the rain." He paused, looking at Leonardo carefully. "You know, I went to 3 warehouses before I got to yours. And everywhere I went, I was met with locked doors and suspicious looks from the guards. But you just helped a man in need. No questions asked, no hesitation. I just—" Leo began. "No," Austin interrupted. "Don't tell me you were just doing what anyone would do. In my experience, not everyone does." Leonardo was silent, not knowing what to say. It all seemed like some kind of surreal dream. "By the way," Austin continued, pulling out his tablet, "I did some research on you. A very interesting story. Your own transportation company, then the crisis, debts. But you know what impressed me the most? The way you handled the situation. You sold everything, including your own house, to pay off your employees and creditors." "It was my duty," Leonardo answered quietly. "Duty," Austin repeated thoughtfully. "You know, these are the kind of people I need in my company. People who understand what duty and responsibility are." Leonardo sat in his spacious office, still trying to comprehend the situation. Austin sat across from him, and Antonio was nervously shifting from foot to foot near the door. "Antonio, you're free to go," Austin said. not taking his eyes off Leo. "We'll finish the conversation ourselves." "Yeah, sure," the warehouse manager mumbled, giving Leonardo a strange look before walking out. When the door closed, Austin leaned back in his chair. "You know, Leonardo, I believe that there are no coincidences, especially in business." "What do you mean?" Leo asked cautiously. "It was no coincidence that I found myself in the rain last night. In recent months, I've been personally visiting our regional offices, not as a director, but as an observer." Leo felt every muscle in his body tense. "Yes and no." Austin tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the table. "I check the people, their reactions, their values. You know what I've noticed over the months?" Leonardo silently shook his head. "That money and positions often make people callous. They forget that business is first and foremost about people, their problems, their needs, their dreams." Austin stood up and walked over to the window. "Yesterday, you could have just closed the door. It would have been the right thing to do from the point of view of the instructions, but you chose humanity. I just—" "No," Austin interrupted him. "Don't minimize what you did. Besides, I know more about you than you think. About your former company, about how you treated your employees during the crisis." He turned to his desk and opened a black leather folder. "I have a proposal for you, Leonardo. I'm looking for someone to fill the position of internal logistics manager at our headquarters." Leo felt his throat go dry. "But I'm just a warehouse worker." "No," Austin shook his head. "You're a former transportation company owner with management experience and an understanding of business processes. You're also a person I can trust." He handed Leo a few sheets of paper. "Here are the terms. A salary 3 times higher than your current salary, top-notch health insurance that covers family members." At the mention of health insurance, Leonardo felt his heart sink. Sophia. It could help her get the treatment she needs. "An office downtown," Austin continued. "I have my own office, a team under me, but the main thing is the opportunity to change something in this company, to make it more human." Leo looked at the papers in silence. The numbers seemed unreal. "I don't know," he finally said. "It's all so sudden, and it's been a long time since I've worked in a managerial position." "It's normal to have doubts," Austin said gently. "But think about the possibilities. About Sophia." Leonardo shuddered. "You know about my daughter?" "I told you I made inquiries." Austin paused. "You know, Leonardo, sometimes life gives us a second chance. Not for ourselves, but for those we love." The office fell silent. Leo looked out the window where a new workday was beginning. Forklifts were scurrying back and forth. Warehouse workers were accepting new deliveries. His world for the past 5 years. "I need time to think," he finally said. "Of course," Austin nodded. "You have 3 days. But remember, sometimes the hardest decisions are the right ones." When Leonardo left the office, his head was spinning. In his pocket was Austin's business card with his personal phone number. In his hands was a folder with an offer that could change his life. "Are you okay?" Marco asked, meeting him outside the locker room. "You look pale." "I don't know," Leo answered honestly. "I really don't know." On the way home, he couldn't stop thinking. On the one hand, there was his usual job where he knew every corner, every procedure. On the other hand, there was the opportunity to start all over again, to give Sophia a chance for recovery. At home, he sat in the kitchen for a long time, looking at a photo of his daughter. She was smiling from the hospital bed, holding a teddy bear in her hands. "What should I do, dear?" he whispered. "How do I make the right decision?" The phone in his pocket felt as heavy as a stone. One call could change everything. But was he ready for such a change? Leonardo stood in front of the mirror in his new office, trying to get used to the reflection. A smart suit instead of his usual work uniform, polished shoes instead of safety boots. The sun was just rising, flooding the office with soft light. "Daddy?" "You look like a real businessman," Sophia said last night when he tried on the suit at home. "Do you really think so?" He smiled then, adjusting his tie with trembling hands. "Of course." She tried to get out of bed, but Leo gently held her down. "Take it easy, dear. The doctor said you need to rest." Sophia rolled her eyes. "I'm not that weak, Daddy. By the way, the doctor said the new therapy is showing good results." Leonardo sat down on the edge of her bed. "Really?" "Yes," her eyes shone. "He said that if this continues, I'll be able to go back to school in a month or two." A knock on the door interrupted his memories. "Mr. Rossi?" Veronica, his new assistant, came into the office. "We have a meeting with the suppliers in 15 minutes. "Thank you, I remembered," Leo replied, taking a folder of documents. The other managers had already gathered in the conference room. Leonardo could feel their eyes on him, a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "Oh, our new forklift expert," he heard a mocking whisper as he passed a group of young managers. "I wonder how long he'll last," another voice replied. Leonardo gritted his teeth and sat back down. The first presentation appeared on the screen, an analysis of the efficiency of deliveries for the last quarter. "As we can see, delays have increased by 40%, the young analyst reported. "The reasons are still unclear." Leo felt something click in his head. He knew the problem. He saw it every day in the warehouse. "May I?" He raised his hand. The room fell silent. "Please do, Mr. Rossi." The chairman of the meeting nodded. "The problem is not with the suppliers," Leonardo stood up. "It's with the way we organize the receipt of goods. I worked in the warehouse and saw it every day." He went to the board and began to draw a diagram. "Look, the trucks arrive all at once in the morning, creating a traffic jam. If we distribute the intake throughout the day—" After the meeting, Austin came up to him. "Great job, Leonardo. That's exactly the kind of insight we need." In the evening, on his way home, Leo felt a strange mixture of tiredness and satisfaction. He stopped at a flower shop and bought a bouquet for Sophia. "Daddy," she exclaimed when he came into the room, "how was your first day?" Leonardo sat down on the edge of the bed. "You know, it was strange." "Tell me everything." Sophia put down the book she was reading. "Well, it was a little scary at first," he admitted. "All these meetings, presentations. But then I realized one thing, that sometimes the best solutions come from people who have seen the problem from different angles." Sophia took his hand. "You know, Dad, I remember you telling me about your old company, how much you loved your job. Maybe this is fate giving you a second chance." Leonardo looked at his daughter, pale and thin, but with the same unbreakable strength of spirit in her eyes. "You have become so wise," he smiled. "When did it happen?" "I guess when I realized that my dad is the strongest person I know," she answered, "even if some people in suits think otherwise." He laughed and kissed her on the forehead. "You're my sunshine. By the way, the doctor said the new therapy—" "Yes," Sophia interrupted him. "He says the tests are getting better. And you know what? Today I was able to walk to the window by myself." Leonardo felt tears coming to his eyes. "Really?" "Yes." No, you need to rest." He gently held her. "But I'm so proud of you." They talked until late in the evening. Sophia asked him about the office, about his new colleagues, about his duties. And then, when she finally fell asleep, Leo sat by her bedside for a long time, watching her sleep peacefully. "Everything will be fine," he thought. "We'll get through this. We always do." An autumn morning flooded Leonardo's spacious office with sunlight. He stood by the window. 6 months had passed since that rainy evening that changed his life. "Dad," came a familiar voice from the door. "I brought us coffee." Leonardo turned around and broke into a smile. Sophia was standing in the doorway of his office holding 2 cups of coffee, flushed, energetic, full of life. It was hard to believe that just a few months ago she could barely get out of bed. "Honey, you were supposed to be at the lecture." He came over and hugged his daughter. "Professor Bianchi has a conference today," she replied, handing him a coffee. "So I decided to visit my favorite dad at his new job." They sat on the sofa by the window, the place where they often spent their lunch breaks together. "How's school?" Leonardo asked, taking a sip of coffee. "Great," Sophia's eyes shone. "You know, I never dreamed that I would be able to go to medical school. And now," she paused, "now I realize that I want to become a doctor, to help children like me." Leonardo felt something tighten in his chest. "You're a good boy. It's all thanks to you, Dad." She took his hand. "If it wasn't for that night when you helped that stranger—" "Sophia," she was interrupted by a knock on the door. Veronica entered the study. "Mr. Rossi, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Wagner would like to see you." Leonardo stood up. "Sorry, dear. Work." "It's okay, Dad," Sophia smiled. "I was going to leave anyway. I'll see you at home tonight." He kissed her forehead. The usual atmosphere of calm and confidence reigned in Austin's office. "Ah, Leonardo." Austin stood up to meet him. "It's good to see you. I just received the quarterly report. Your changes to the logistics system have saved the company €1 million. "I just used my experience," Leo replied modestly. "That's what I wanted to talk about." Austin sat down in his chair. "You know, that night I wasn't just looking for shelter from the rain. I was looking for a man, a person who understands business not from books and presentations, but from real experience. Someone who knows what it means to lose everything and find the strength to get back up." He took an envelope from the drawer. "The board of directors has unanimously approved your promotion. Starting next month, you will be the chief operating officer for the entire Southern European region." Leonardo felt his breath catch in his throat. "But—" "No buts," Austin smiled. "Over the past months, you have proven yourself worthy of this position. You've changed not only the logistics processes, you've changed the atmosphere in the company. People have seen that you can succeed while remaining human." In the evening, sitting with Sophia on the terrace of their new apartment overlooking the city, Leonardo told her the news. "Dad, this is incredible," she hugged him. "You deserve it." "You know," he said thoughtfully, "once, when I lost the company, I thought that life was over, especially when you got sick. I thought I would never get out of this hole." Sophia leaned against his shoulder. "But you didn't give up. You worked in the warehouse, saved every euro for my treatment. And one rainy evening you just helped a stranger," he added. "Who would have thought that kindness could be returned in such a way?" At that moment, Leonardo's phone vibrated. A message from Austin. "Once upon a time, you helped me for no reason without expecting anything in return. Today I'm glad I was able to return the favor. But remember, I believed in you not because of that night, but because of who you are. Never change, Leonardo." He looked at his daughter, who was sleeping peacefully on his shoulder, at the lights of the city below, at his reflection in the window, a man who had found his way back to happiness.